very much. All right.
That's my point.
And so, first noble truth, life is suffering, right? Do you believe, yes or no?
Yes.
No, you don't.
Yes, I do. Yes, I believe it.
Okay, I have no idea what you think. But anyway, but typically, if someone says life is suffering, right? I mean, what's the typical reaction? It's, I don't know, I saw a good movie, good TV show, I mean, I had a good
Life's not
meal.
all suffering. Life is not all suffering.
Well, from a Buddhist perspective, the first noble truth is, it's not clarified as life is suffering. It's not some life is suffering and some isn't suffering, and that's what we're talking about, you see? So, and this is the normal way of thinking, right? The normal way of thinking is yeah, okay, so I get a headache now and then, but the time in between isn't suffering. I mean, yeah, I can see points of suffering and moments of suffering, but there's also times in between, which is pretty good, right? But from a Buddhist perspective, it doesn't fly. From a Buddhist perspective, they would say, look, I mean, let's say you go on a cruise, you're having a wonderful time, you know, great afternoon, and then the ship sinks and that's it. You know, eaten by a shark or something, right? Was it a lovely time? Or was it a catastrophe?
Up until a point.
Up to a point, we would normally say it was fine. Buddhism doesn't look at it that way. Buddhism looks at it from the perspective of, you can't say something that ends in a terrible outcome is good. It doesn't make any sense to say if something ends in a really crappy, catastrophic outcome, then it's a good thing. All right? So you could say, well, yeah, you know, you had some moments of some good times along the way, but would you say that it was a great thing overall? If it had if the boat sank and you got eaten by sharks, would you say it was a great thing? I see you're torn, Bruce.
I'm trying to control myself and failing. So Buddhism also says that the future, the past can't be changed, and the future hasn't happened yet, and the only thing we have is the now that is apprehendable. So if that's the case, then this deterministic argument, which is focused entirely on events that haven't happened yet, from a given moment, is indefensible in Buddhist terms.
Well, go back to the first noble truth, life is suffering, right? In our current reality, normal human reality, have we met anyone who hasn't died? Typically not, right? Have we met anyone who hasn't gotten sick? Have we met anyone who hasn't had all of these various sufferings? Typically not, right? So from the Buddhist perspective, anything which is attached to a miserable outcome is part of suffering, right? It's tied up with suffering. And it doesn't, so Buddhism doesn't make the distinction of the first moment is pleasure, even though it's connected to and tied to the second moment, which is pain. It's like, you know, licking honey off a razor blade. At what moment is it stop? Does the sweetness stop and the pain start?
But that's like saying, because the house is connected to a doorknob, that a house can be seen as a doorknob.
I'm not sure I would go with that.
Well, a house is a doorknob, right?
The house has a doorknob?
It has a doorknob. So if I had to appreciate what the house is as a whole, I would have to say because some portion of it has a doorknob, that it therefore is to be understood as just a doorknob.
Would you
It's
say-
a doorknob or a doorknob waiting to happen.
Would you say the house contains a doorknob, perhaps?
Well, then I could say life contains suffering.
Yeah.
But not that life is suffering.
How would you make the distinction between life contains suffering and life is
When I'm
suffering?
experiencing the doorknob, then the truth of the house is doorknob.
Yeah.
When I'm experiencing suffering, the truth of life is suffering.
So then, you know, not to get too philosophical about it, but then we go into at what moment does the one stop and the other start?
Well, they have to be distinguishable, or the argument that concerns itself with suffering would be pointless.
So again, they have to be distinguishable,
You're making an
or
argument that points to suffering as the salient fact of life. So if it were not distinguishable from non-suffering, then we couldn't even describe it as suffering. We would simply say life, the truth of life is life, and what we would mean by that is suffering.
Well, let me try
a comparative reference.
So let me try to address it differently. So we live our day-to-day lives from the perspective of the discrete moments, right? what is this discrete moment like? What is this discrete moment like? What is this discrete moment like? Right? That's typically how we relate to our experience in our world, right? From a Buddhist perspective, we're saying that's not really useful. And that's not really a good way to look at life and engage life and view life, right? Why? Because one thing is connected to the next. One moment is connected to the next, right? In an ordinary life, in a normal life, every positive thing we have is connected with a lousy outcome. Every, relationship we have will end one way or another, whether it's through death or separation or whatever it might be. All of the work we do to acquire things, right, ends in losing the things we acquire, right? So from the perspective of how we're living our life and what we're committing our life energy and our focus and our awareness and ourselves to, it's the wrong focus. It's a too narrow a view and missing the bigger picture. And that as we get closer and closer to death, the things that we have put so much of our time and life energy into start to look very silly and unimportant and insignificant. And so when we talk about life being suffering, what we're really talking about is what is the framework by which we're living, right? And really from a Buddhist perspective, what we're saying is that we're living from the perspective of dying, almost. We are going to die. And in that context, right, what is everything leading up to that about? And Buddhism says, or would say, that the fact that I'm going to die, right, means that everything I do leading up to death, right, in an ordinary sense, is part of a broken process, perhaps you could say. So it's not, you could say, look, it was a great cruise, I love the wind in my hair, I love the sunshine, I love the friends, I love the company, but in the end, I got eaten by a shark, You could say all those things, and it's all valid, right? So that's all, really. So in the end, you're eaten by a shark or you die some other way. And so from a Buddhist perspective, they're tied up together, The fact that they're tied up together, it's really saying, you can't say, if you look at it as a discrete thing, the cruise, right? If you talk about the cruise, you can talk about the first moment of the cruise or the second hour of the cruise. You can talk about the cruise in whatever way you want, but it's all still connected and it's all still wrapped up together and ended in being eaten by the shark. So that's the idea. Yeah.
Just one thing regarding to that, because you mentioned the first noble truth, and then the second noble truth actually say what is the cause, and the cause is attachment and clinging to things. And when you say suffering, it's actually dukkha, which means it doesn't reject sukha, which is pleasure. However, dukkha has a lot of faces, which are not only physical. So the idea is it's like a snake that has two sides. If it's on the positive side, you hold the snake. If it's on the negative side, it's like you have suffering experience, immediately the snake bites you and you feel it. However, when it's like positive experience, like you grasp the snake on the other side, so you enjoy it, but you have this attachment. When you change, then you suffer. So it's like just have a delay till you get bitten by this experience of life, because we are having this tendency to be attached to it. If you are young, you want to be young all the time, and you just always suffer. Because everything happens to us, if it's good, we want it, and then when it changes, we suffer.
So why are we talking about these things, right? I mean, because you could say the same thing about Buddhism, right? You could say, well, look, you study Buddhism, you get old, you get senile, you forget everything you learn, right? I mean, what's the difference, right? Ends in suffering, ends in death. And so the reason we're talking about this is to make the distinction between two different kinds of karma, pure and impure karma, right? If one collects impure karma, one gets an ordinary result, which is like, you earn money and you spend it and you have this stuff and you use it and it wears out and it's gone. If you collect pure karma, meaning with the correct view of emptiness, then you're collecting karma which doesn't wear out, which perpetuates itself and brings a result which is long-term happiness and long-term goodness, right? So the kind of karma which we can collect, which leads to pleasure permanently and eternally, sort of through this karmic reinvestment process, is pure karma. And so that's really the point. That's why we're talking about life is suffering, right? It's because pretty much any karma we collect in an ordinary sense is impure karma, where we get to go on a great cruise, and the karma ripens, and it lasts for a while, and the karma wears out, and then the boat sinks or whatever, in a worst case scenario, and you just go back to the dock and have to go to work, in a more mundane scenario, right? Be less dramatic. So, all of these impure karmas we're collecting bring a temporary positive result if we're collecting virtue, impure virtue. And if we're collecting pure virtue with the correct view, then these are virtuous karmas which perpetuate themselves into a sustained positive result. And, okay, so we're going to move on. So, where are we? Number 20. What did Lord Buddha say was the purpose of logic? The point, well, we're about halfway. I'll try to be quick. Alright, so I'll just zoom here. So, the purpose of logic, very profound, is to not judge other people, right? We have no idea what anyone else is thinking if we can't read their mind, right? So, we have to prove to ourselves that we have to use logic to remind ourselves and inform ourselves that we have no idea what anyone's motivation is. We have no idea why people are doing what they're doing. And so we can't judge anyone else. You see someone doing something on the street, you see somebody, hitting someone over the head with a lead pipe or something, and, you say that's a bad person. You can't, that's judging them. You can't do that. You can't judge a person's motivation. You have to judge their action. You say they're hitting them with, they're mugging them, they're attacking them, that's wrong, they're hurting someone. I can judge their actions, but I can't judge their motivation. So we have to always assess someone's actions, and we have to always engage in their actions based upon our bodhisattva vows to say, no, we can't permit anyone to hurt anyone else. It's a violation of our bodhisattva vows. No idea what their motivation is. They could be some omniscient being who sees that, if they walk down the street, that they're gonna, blow up a building or something, right? And so they're hitting them over the head to prevent them from killing 1,000 people. No idea. Right? Or they could see that 30 years from now that they're going to be a despot and dictator in a country, perpetuating a genocide or something. All right. So that's the idea. You have to evaluate the actions. Okay. Not judging the person. So there are distinct levels of practice and distinct levels of perception. Someone who has kept their vows very purely could be perceiving the environment and the circumstances very differently. They could be perceiving a very different level of reality than we are. They may have collected enough virtue and goodness to be perceiving things validly in a very different way than we are. So never judge. Okay, be very careful. It's very possible people are at distinctly different levels from years and decades of practice, and are just experiencing the world differently than we are. All right. 22. What does a person have to be omniscient, right? Normally you think, well, they have to know like what Einstein knew, and they have to know everything there is in science and everything that exists on the far side of the universe. And that's not really the main point. The main point is they have to know perfectly what to take up and what to give up, right? They have to know perfectly what the causes of happiness are and what the sources of suffering are, right? That's the main point of omniscience, is that they're dwelling in truth all the time. And they have total awareness of what's right and wrong, right? And do they know what's on the other side of the universe? Yeah, all that other stuff too, but that's not really the point. Okay? What's the basic principle underlying the argument in favor of past and future lives? The Nirlengigu, the material cause, right? So in our culture, it's ingrained that past and future lives don't exist. It's a prejudice of our culture because we were taught by our parents upon birth and everywhere else we've gone. In Tibet, they were taught that past and future lives do exist. And similarly, in both cultures which believe in past and future lives and cultures which do not believe in it, typically neither can prove logically or address logically why they should or shouldn't exist, right? And so the point is not to believe this or believe that without a foundation, a logical foundation. The point is to have a logical foundation for one's conclusion. Okay, so it comes down to two things. You have to prove the mind and body are separate, right? We tend to have it drilled into ourselves that the brain is the mind, and we have to overcome that. So when you're teaching, you've got to differentiate between the brain and mind. So, do the senses stop at the edge of our skin? Does the mind stop at the edge of our skin? No, obviously, my mind can go to the next room. My mind can go to the street. My mind can go to the subway. My mind is obviously not bounded by my skin and contained by my skin, right? So, from a Buddhist perspective, thinking that the edge of your mind is the edge of your skin is very primitive. So where's the mind, right? We have the perception that the mind is somehow like in here somewhere around the brain, associated with the brain, and somehow it's going out and coming back and going over there and coming back, or diffusing this and somehow floating around and moving around. So we have some kind of sort of crude idea. So from a Buddhist perspective, the mind easily goes beyond the skin, right? The visual consciousness can go over there, and my body's not over there, and my brain's not over there, right? So the mind extends to whatever we can reasonably think of. So we have to learn to separate the meat of the physical body from the mind, which has nothing in common with the body. I mean, they're very dissimilar. There's no material cost. So you have to get people into the mode of thinking of the nature of the mind versus the nature of the body, and what their substantial nature is. The mind's unweighable, uncuttable, unburnable, undestroyable, passes beyond physical matter. Right? Nothing similar about the stuff of the mind and the stuff of the body and their characteristic. No similarity at all. So we have to overcome a lot of these cultural prejudices to get past just what our ingrained beliefs are, which are not rational and not logical. So, okay. So we have these deep-seated habituation that we've got to overcome. So that's the basic argument. They're not similar stuff at all, the mind and the body. So there's a question about what makes something good karma, what makes something bad karma. Very simple, self-interested, pain and pleasure, right? If I do something, it causes me pain, it's a negative karma, it's a bad karma. If I do something, it causes me pleasure and leads to enlightenment or nirvana, then it's a virtuous karma, right? It's not because anyone's judging, it's not because so-and-so, your parents said so, or some high being said so. It's simply direct causation. It's like gravity. Gravity works a certain way. You drop stuff, it falls. Karma works a certain way. These are the laws of karma. Okay? You do certain deeds that are going to hurt you. That's what makes it good or bad. There's no other outer judge associated with it, right? When karma ripens. All right, 29. People tend to think karma always ripens in the next life, right? But is it true? No, because that would deny the effectiveness of tantric practice, right? The whole point of tantric practice is to collect and ripen karma in this very life. So when people are thinking about karma and talking about karma, it's very easy for them to fall into the mode of, I'm collecting karma for some future lives, so in some future unspecified point in time, my life will be better in some vague, nebulous way, right? Which is not really the point. The point is to become enlightened in this life before we die. So the whole theory of Tantra is to become a tantric deity in this life, right? Based upon the fact that you can commit powerful karmas in this life and trigger them and receive the rewards in this life. So, all right. So the idea of Tantra is that it powerfully purifies negative karma and it powerfully collects positive karma. Okay. And if that weren't the case, you couldn't become a tantric deity in this life. Then we have the correlations. When we're talking about karma, it's important to talk about karmic correlations. 4 different things happen when you collect a karma. Take killing, for example, right? You can take any one of the non-virtues, but we'll just take killing quickly. So if you kill someone, there are 4 different levels of karmic results, right? You collect a karma, and it ripens on multiple levels, right? As we said, it's like everything we experience on every sensory level is karmic ripening. So on one level, karmic maturation is that your realm is determined by karmic ripening. Are you a human? Are you an animal? Are you a craving spirit? Are you a whole realm being? So based upon the karma you collect, you will have a perception of a realm, right? All right. Realms don't come from some self-existent creator god or some self-existent, it's like beings over in the craving spirit realm, like fabricating the craving spirit realm. It doesn't work like that, right? The realms aren't made by anyone externally. The realms aren't created by anything over there or out there. It's not like hell exists below the earth and it's just waiting for you to go there. It's not like heaven exists up in the clouds and it's just waiting for you to go there. It isn't the case that there's a self-existent heaven or hell or nirvana or hungry ghost realm and you just sort of happen to walk through that particular door and you're in that realm, right? It's not like that. Does the hell realm or craving spirit realm or a paradisical realm that you might be going to exist now? No. Where does it come from? It's perception. It's a shift of your mind. Right? All it takes is your mind to shift the way in which it's perceiving, and you're in a different realm. You know, we are a few perceptual shifts away from existing in another realm. You know, and so that is what it is to be in another realm. Is to simply have a mind which is perceiving and processing and projecting in a different way, right? So the whole idea of death as a self-existent thing is wrong. It's a fallacy. You know, the whole idea of self-existent realms is a fallacy. How many realms are there? Potentially vast numbers of realms, right? Anything you can conceive, anything you can project, right? Anything your mind can
The Pokio realm.
you can do a Pokio realm. I'm not sure about that one, but I mean, if you can
Pokemon realm.
project it, it can be there, right? I mean, there's no like dog bodies waiting. There's no like Bardo factory. You know, there's nobody making like these little other bodies of other realms waiting for you to get stuffed inside. You know, I mean, it just doesn't exist. You know, but we think like this. We think like, yeah, there's like animals over there, and I'll just pop into an animal. No, you know, not like that. Okay. So it's just a shift in the perception. So, you know, I mean, it's just like anything else. You know, you know, like my knee was sore. I was running down steps too much today, and I like somehow did something, and then all of a sudden I have a perception of a sore knee. You know, I didn't have a perception of a sore knee, and now I have a perception of a sore knee. So it's a shift in perception. You know, multi-sensory, faceted experience. Okay. So you know, and everything is like that. You know, death is like that. You know. Existing in another realm is like that, perceptual shift. I mean, to create a hell realm is simply having karmic seeds ripen to perceive things as that kind of suffering and that kind of existence. So it's, you know, it's fast and it's scary. You know, we have to be really careful about the karma we're collecting and the karma we're triggering, right? Okay. So secondly, second level of karmic ripening is for killing. In this case, is they say even if you are born as a human, you'll have a short lifespan, or people will attack you, or harm you, or you know, or you'll be killed by other people, and that's a personal result, or a personal ripening, right? And then third, you have the habit. You're habituated to do that thing again. It's like anything we do, we're strengthening a habit. You know, anything we do over and over, we're strengthening a habit, no matter what it is, whether it's a thought or a deed or speech. So, you know, killing, for example, is every time you kill, bug, anything, you're reinforcing that habit and strengthening the habit. Okay. I mean, that's why, you know, you see little kids. Some little kids come in as really sweet, really loving. Some kids come in as cruel. Some kids come in as, you know, as whatever. Nerdy. So, and then the last one is the environmental result, the external world, right? Like, you know, why is there war? You know, why are there muggers? I was speaking to somebody today at work, and she's from Haiti. She runs a medical clinic in Haiti, and she was saying, like, you know, I can't believe it. You know, our country's rubble. Like, you know, things don't grow. You know, there's violence everywhere, and you know, Dominican Republic's on the other side of the same island. You know, when you fly in, and you can just see the line down the middle of the island. This side of the island is like dry, and nothing's growing, and it's rubble, and this side of the island, it's good life. Why is that? So, it's an environmental result, an environmental ripening, the external world. You know, the whole world's created by karma. You know, I mean, you know. Billions of people see the sun come up. It's karmic ripening, you know, shared by those billions of people. Some people don't see the sun come up. You know, like you go into work before the sun comes up, you come out of work after the sun goes down and work in a windowless place, you don't see the sun 5 days a week. You know, other people are seeing the sun 5 days a week. So it's not self-existent to see the sun, you know, whether you're blind or whatever it might be. 31, my trainer is talking about the 6 steps, one of the most beautiful teachings in Buddhism, on how you collect karma, 6 steps on how you collect karma. So we have ignorance from a past life, which leads to ignorance in this life, which leads to seeing things the wrong way, which makes us like things and dislike things in the wrong way, ignorantly, which makes us collect karma, which makes us stay here and be reborn ignorantly, etc., perpetuating it. So this connects karma and emptiness. You know, this is the whole thing about the boss and how you respond to the boss and the pen and everything else, right? So we should understand the chubab, right? Chubab, the glass of water thing. You know, what is there? What is the basis? You know, multiple beings are perceiving the same thing, right? Is it one thing? Is it 3 things? What's really there? You know, if 2 beings are in the room, 2 different classes of beings are in the room, 3 different classes of beings are in the room, right? One being perceives it as ambrosia, one being perceives it as water, one being perceives it as pus or blood or painful substance to drink, whatever it might be. What is the nature of that stuff, and where's the nature of that stuff coming from, and how does it exist, and how doesn't it exist, right? Very profound point about understanding the nature of reality, and the nature of what's there and what's not there, right? So it's very important to use these 2 points, the Chubab analysis and the 6 steps from Maitreya. Very important to tie these into people's regular lives, because if you're going to be teaching Buddhism and you're going to be effective, then people have to really walk out with an understanding of how they're going to live it and how they're going to practice it and how they're going to connect with it, right? So we have to explain why bad things are happening to them and how they should react when bad things happen, right? Because that's really how they end their suffering. That's the salvation from endless suffering, right? Is understanding how to break the wheel of life at that first link, right? How to break that cycle, that samsara cycle. Okay. Then you're, and if we're not teaching them that, then we're really not teaching Buddhism. We're teaching them to be a little calm, teaching them to be a little nicer person. If we're not teaching them how to understand karma and emptiness and how to break the first link in the wheel of life, then we're not teaching them to get out of suffering. We're teaching them lesser things. So you've got to teach people how to react to the boss and regular life situations, or we're not serving them. How to get out of suffering in their lives. All right, so Tantra, we're talking about Tantra, 3 principal paths. You slide into Tantra. What does that mean? 2 levels, so going on to that, there's another point. 2 levels of Tantra. The first level of Tantra is creation stage level. And in that level, that's where you start to encounter and meet holy beings, angelic beings, deities, whatever you want to call them. So that would be the practice of the first level of Tantra, would be where you're doing the creation stage, where you're actually collecting the karma and ripening the karma to create holy beings who will be in your life, right? And the second level of Tantra is where it's called completion stage, where you start to have clear and definite experiences of yourself becoming a holy being, or yourself becoming a highly involved angelic being or tantric deity or something like that. And how does that happen? You keep your vows, you keep your ethics. And so, it's crazy not to watch one's ethics. It's crazy not to be meticulous with one's ethics. Like if we had any true, clear indication that these things could happen, we'd be watching our vows and our ethics quite meticulously, right? If you think about it, it's not much effort. It's to check in our vows every couple of hours throughout the day is not a lot of effort. And when you think about the effort versus the return, it's massively disproportionate. Say, oh, well, I can meet a holy being, I can meet an angel or a tantric deity. If I just spend like 20, 30 minutes a day checking my vows, probably worth it, right? Good thing. So, what have you got to lose, right? At worst, you're like a kinder, better person, right? And nothing else happens except that you become a better person. So, what's the downside? Not much. So, very, very big upside. And it makes sense that you would start to see holy beings and deities, because everything's empty and you're collecting that karma, right? And karma is collecting the world and the beings in the world. So try it. See if it works. Okay. So as teachers, I think the last thing to say is, as teachers, we've got to get in the mode that the way the Dharma is going to spread, the teachings are going to spread in our culture, in our society, is through you. Through us, right? It's through normal people, educated people, normal people with jobs, living normal lives, who are, learning the material, studying, meditating, and practicing. And, serious Buddhists who keep their morality, check their vows, do retreats, and, and are committed to it. So, living a normal life, but using it at the office, not some theoretical thing, but, learning the material and then actually engaging and practicing it at work and in families and friends and all the rest, right? So, there's a rich gold mine of mental afflictions in the home life and in the office life and relationship life, right? And that's what it is to practice, right? It's one thing to sit in a class here and say, okay, I got all this theoretical knowledge, but you've got to actually then go do it, right? And it's essential to do retreats, and it's essential to monitor our ethics and our vows consistently and meticulously. And then to work on our mental afflictions and work on the state of our mind throughout the day and all the circumstances we encounter in normal life. So Yeah, I mean, we're well-fed, well-housed, we can read, well-educated. We have all the circumstances to try it out, and so, it's incumbent upon us to continue the lineage, and so that's, I think how it will spread. And we take up the mantle. So, end of class 16, course 16.
Thank you so much for teaching all these years. Yeah. Will you start again in 2015?
See you in 2015.
Yeah.
Sashi.
Poki Jushin Metok Tram Miraling Shin Yindegam Padi Sangde Shindu Miteguargi Drobunamda Shinla Chuparsho Hidam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Ninyatayami Gawadi Gawakun Sunam Yeshe Tsoksokshin Sunam Yeshe Lejun Hui Hidam Pakuni Toparsho.
See the holy being at your crown become smaller and brighter and enter into your heart, blessing you. By the power of our virtue, by the power of our goodness, may we quickly come to see every holy thing in the world as an expression of our mind and heart. May we quickly perceive every being and every interaction, our entire existence, as holy and pure and virtuous. Thank you all for coming, for allowing me to do something meaningful with my life.
So is there class next week or no?
No, that was the end.
That's the end?
The end of course 16. So we'll do, course 17 is the review of emptiness. It's the Diamond Cutter Sutra and the review of emptiness. It's course 6. Course 7 is Bodhisattva vows. Course 8 is death and relative existence, and then course 9 is
Ethical life.
So when are you starting in
stuff.
after
So-
New Year's?
So yeah, we won't do anything until after the new year, so stay tuned to the Three Jewels website, and we'll figure out a schedule and do something sometime probably in January for starting course 17.
So between now and then, there's a couple of things happening at the Three Jewels. There's the event. What day is that?
The holiday party?
Yeah.
December 19th.
So that's just 10 days away.
Next Tuesday, there's the fundraiser for.
There's next Tuesday, same time, same place, Project Air, Yoga in Rwanda, Deirdre Summer Bell here, 7:30 to 9:30. Everybody's welcome. Yeah, if you have any questions, look on the Three Jewels website or ask me. My name's Leah.
And then this weekend, this Saturday, Maria Catrona is going to teach again for the 6 perfections. That's this Saturday. And there's just, the newsletters will have all the events coming up.
Teaching next
scheduled.
Thursday?
So,
And then on the 21st, Birdie's taking a bunch of people to Staten Island, the Buddhist center there, on a little pilgrimage, and raising all the funds for that will come to the Three Jewels to help for the new space. So there's plenty of activity. Keep in contact with the newsletter, look on the website, and keep the Three Jewels going so we can ask more people like John to keep teaching for another year. Yeah. Thank you.
And what's the building status? Do they have any buyers?
Nothing yet. No. So we're okay. Yeah.
So hope you have a wonderful holiday, wonderful New Year, lovely time until we meet again. Thank you.
You too.
Thank you.
Thanks for your thing.
Thank you.